My name is Celine Arden Vale, 38 years old. Last Tuesday at 7:03 p.m., I was coaxing pasta into a rolling boil when my boyfriend Mason set his phone face down on the counter like it might bite him and said, "I'm moving out tonight. Don't contact me again." The garlic hissed in the pan. The clock on the oven blinked 7:03 like it was taking notes. He didn't look at me. He looked at the empty part of the kitchen, the way people look at a fire exit they plan to use. "Okay," I said. He finally glanced up, surprise flickering before annoyance. "That's it?" "You said you're moving out," I answered, nodding toward the soft-sided duffel he'd already half-packed beside the island. "What would you like me to do? Block the doorway?" "I need space, Celine. I'm not happy." "Clearly," I said, tasting the word, finding it matched the scene. "I'll get my main things later," he added, almost rehearsed. "Don't contact me. I'll contact you when I'm ready to talk about the rest." By the rest, he meant logistics. Maybe the next chapter he'd already written without me. "Fine," I said. He grabbed the duffel, his keys, on the ring I'd bought him when we moved in, and walked out. No look back. The door clicked, a sound so small it shouldn't have rearranged a life. The pasta boiled over. I turned off the stove, wiped the mess with the kind of care you give a ritual, then washed my hands and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Not anger, clarity. He wanted out. My turn. First, Amex Platinum. Supplementary. The card he loved, the one that paid for rooftop networking and creative inspiration. Cancelled. Reason. Cardholder no longer authorized. Second, Visa, also supplementary. Cancelled. Third, the automatic monthly transfer I'd set up from my checking to his personal account, what we called a bridge, while he built his brand between gigs. Bridge closed. Fourth, phone plan, family account in my name. His line stayed active. I am not cruel. International roaming and travel pass, disabled. If he needed to be free, he could also be local. Car insurance, already paid for the quarter. I'd deal with that when a piece of mail told me it was time. Finally, I fired off one crisp email to myself with the subject Mason, timeline, and started a log, 7:03 p.m. I'm moving out tonight. 7:05. Okay. 7:08. Door closed. 7:17 cards canceled. Documentation is a kindness to the future. I ate burnt pasta that tasted like a cautionary tale and slept harder than I expected. 3 days of quiet followed. No calls, no texts, no performative quotes on his story about choosing peace. I worked. I took 2 bags of his clutter to the guest room and closed the door. I watched my show on the big TV without commentary about how prestige dramas are just vibes, and fell in love with the silence the way you fall in love with a view, slowly, then all at once. At 9:02 p.m. on day 3, the knocking started. Insistent. Thump, thump, thump. Through the peephole, Mason. No designer jacket, hoodie, hair rumpled. The duffel had been replaced by empty hands. I opened the door just enough that the chain caught the light. "Celine," he said, breathless, like he'd run up a hill and found a cliff. "Mason," I said. "Calm. Neighbor asking for sugar." "My card was declined," he blurted. "The Amex, at dinner." "Right," I said. "I canceled it." "You what? Why?" The entitlement rose like heat. "That card is mine." "It was supplementary on my account," I said. "And you told me not to contact you. That qualifies as not being part of my household." "I had dinner with Veronica," he said, and the name landed like a stone dropped in a still pool. "It was professional. It was embarrassing." I lifted an eyebrow. "Embarrassing for you? Yes." "My visa isn't working either," he said, voice sharpening, "and the transfer didn't hit." "Also correct," I said. "The transfer was a gift while we were together. You ended that arrangement." Something vulnerable flashed across his face. Grief, maybe, or the sudden hangover after an impulse. Then resolve hardened, the kind of resolve that was really habit. "You can't just cut me off. There are obligations." "I'm not touching anything that's yours," I said, level. "Your car title has your name. Your personal account is your personal account. This house is mine. I bought it before we met." The credit cards were privileges. They end when the relationship funding them ends. "You're being awful," he said. "You know I need time to get on my feet." "You have time," I said. "You don't have my money." He stood there, fury and disbelief warring like cousins who've always agreed about everything and don't know how to stop. "You'll regret this, Celine." Already regretting other things, I said softly. This is just housekeeping. He took a breath like the threat. I'll get a lawyer. Please do, I said, and closed the door gently on his face. Through the wood, I heard an inarticulate sound. Frustration, not grief, and footsteps storming away. I poured a whiskey I didn't finish and added 9:04 p.m., doorstep demand to my timeline. Then I sent a quick text to Judith Park, an attorney I trust. Heads up, he left. I ended supplementary accounts. Expect noise. Judith replied in 2 bubbles. Document. Offer supervised pickup for belongings. Change locks. Sleep. I changed the locks the next morning for the same reason you wear a seatbelt even when you're a good driver, other people. By Monday, I'd heard from my receptionist. He called 3 times, Kayla said, voice dry. Used words like urgent and financial. I used words like in a meeting. Double your holiday bonus, I said, and meant it. The group chat with mutual friends lit up next. The usual chorus when someone goes off script. He's devastated. He says you blindsided him. He says you're punishing him. I wrote the same sentence to all of them. Mason chose to leave. I'm respecting his request for no contact and adjusting finances accordingly. Private matter. And muted the thread. The person who didn't mute, who never mutes, who treats silence like an accusation, was Marilyn Cross, Mason's older sister. The block number came through as unknown, but the voice was a violin string tuned to scold. What on earth do you think you're doing to my brother? She demanded. You're starving him. You threw him out. He walked, I said. He has his own account, his car, and, based on last night, Veronica for dinner. Veronica is just a friend, Marilyn snapped. He needs his allowance. He's used to a certain standard. The standard I provided, I said, the coolness in my voice surprising even me. Contingent on being in a relationship with me. He opted out. He'll take you for everything, she promised, like a fairy godmother of bad advice. He's welcome to try, I said. But we're not married. The house is premarital property. The cards were mine. I consulted counsel. You're a monster, she hissed. I'm consistent, I said and hung up. Venmo requests arrived within the hour. Emergency. $500. Need help? Declined. Declined again. A tearful voicemail followed. You're being cruel. Just a week. Just until... Delete. Not because I couldn't stand to hear it. Because I could. And it was designed to make me mistake pity for duty. On Tuesday at 2:11 p.m., my Ring camera captured Mason trying the front door. The new locks didn't care about history. Neither did I. That evening, I sent him a single text through our messaging app. No flourishes, just policy. You may schedule a supervised pickup for your belongings. A third-party mover is welcome. Judith's paralegal will be present. Proposed times. Read. No reply. At 9:37 p.m., a new message appeared, this time from an unfamiliar number. V. Hale. Mason needs his suits for meetings. We'll swing by tomorrow at noon. I added the screenshot to the timeline and wrote one line beneath it in bold. Veronica is back. I put my phone face down and looked around my quiet kitchen, the plant in the window that only I watered, the heavy skillet that would outlast most vows, the yellow post-it on the fridge with a recipe I wrote in a better mood. I waited for the tremor that used to live in my hands when things broke. It didn't come. I boiled water, made pasta the way I like it, al dente, garlicky, unapologetically simple, ate it at the counter with the lights low and the door locked and my name on the deed. Sometimes the sound of peace is paperwork. Sometimes it's a saucepan. Sometimes it's a woman who says, fine, and means enough. By Wednesday morning, the phone had gone from a tool to a weapon. Missed calls, blocked numbers, half-hearted apologies wrapped around accusations. Every alert was a ghost at the window, asking for entry. At 10:12 a.m., Judith, my lawyer, called. He's testing boundaries, she said simply. You're doing fine. Keep everything in writing. And when he asks for his things, give him structure, not emotion. I smiled faintly. Structure I can do. Good, she said, because something tells me chaos is coming. She was right. At noon sharp, my doorbell chimed 3 times. When I checked the camera feed, I had to laugh. There they were, Mason, looking underfed on self-pity, Marilyn, his sister, holding her phone like a sword, and of course, Veronica Hale, the ex-girlfriend, sleek and expensive even in daylight. 3 ghosts of bad decisions at my front door. I opened it halfway. You have 30 minutes, I said. Judith's paralegal is inside. We'll be inventorying as you pack. Marilyn started immediately, her voice pitched for drama. You changed the locks. He tried to come by yesterday and you locked him out of his own home. My home, I corrected. You'll find his name nowhere on the deed. Veronica's eyes flicked around the entryway, calculating the square footage, the light. Nice place, she murmured. I know, I said, then gestured to the boxes I'd already stacked neatly near the door. Clothes, shoes, personal effects. Everything else is subject to discussion through counsel. Mason's jaw tightened. You packed my studio gear? Cables and small equipment, yes. The rest was leased under my account. It's staying. He took a breath somewhere between frustration and disbelief. You can't just... I can, I said. And I did. The paralegal, a calm woman in a gray blazer, cleared her throat. Let's proceed, please. Mr. Cross, sign beside each item as you take it. For the next half hour, I watched the trio move through my home like tourists at a museum they couldn't afford. Mason avoided my eyes. Marilyn made small noises of outrage whenever I corrected an item's ownership. Veronica wandered, quiet and predatory, her gaze lingering on the framed art, the kitchen appliances, the stillness. At one point, she stopped by the dining table where my laptop sat closed. He left his project files on here, she said smoothly. No, I said. He used my laptop for convenience. His work is backed up on his own drive, which I handed to the paralegal 5 minutes ago. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Always so organized. Occupational hazard, I said. Mason muttered. We don't have to do this like enemies. No, I said evenly. We're not enemies. We're just done. He looked down. The silence between us was heavier than anything in the boxes. When they were finished, Marilyn snatched the inventory clipboard from the paralegal and scanned it like she could find injustice between the lines. You're keeping the TV? I bought the TV. The couch? Also me. That's petty, she hissed. Petty would have been changing the Wi-Fi password, I said. This is proportionate. Veronica finally stepped forward, an envelope in her hand. We'll be taking this too, she said, pointing at a small decorative safe on the sideboard. It's his paperwork. I crossed my arms. Open it. Mason hesitated, then spun the dial. Inside, 2 expired passports, a half-empty bottle of cologne, and a folded document. I recognized the logo at the top instantly. A lease agreement. Interesting, I said softly. A new address? Veronica's tone was too casual. Just helping him get settled. My eyes dropped to the date. Signed 1 week before he'd left me. Co-signed by Veronica Hale. There it was. Proof that this wasn't a spontaneous walkout, but a relocation already under construction. I looked at Mason. You didn't even make it a full week of pretending, did you? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The paralegal cleared her throat again. Shall I mark this document as returned property? No, I said, voice calm. Make a copy for the file. We'll let counsel decide what it means. Marilyn bristled. You're enjoying this. No, I said quietly, but I am remembering it. When the last box was carried out, I stood at the doorway as they tried to cram everything into Veronica's pristine sedan. Mason's duffel went in last, the same one he'd packed when he left. You could have made this easier, he said, not looking at me. I did, I said. I let you walk. He flinched. Veronica closed the trunk. For a heartbeat, she met my gaze, calculating, assessing, maybe even a little threatened. I smiled slightly, and she looked away first. When they drove off, Marilyn's voice carried out the window, shrill and cracked. You'll regret this, Celine. I didn't answer. The lock clicked behind me with a sound that felt like punctuation. 2 days later, the first wave of rumors hit. Mutual friends messaged me carefully. He says you stole from him. He says you're vindictive. He says Veronica was just helping. I replied the same to everyone. All property disputes are handled through counsel. I wish him well. Then I muted the threads again. The next week, my HR manager called me into her office. Just so you know, she said gently, someone's been calling, asking about your salary, your employment status, and whether the company has a morality clause. Mason, I said. She nodded. We're blocking the number. Outside the office, I took a deep breath and felt something I hadn't since the night he left. Anger, clean and cold, the kind that no longer shakes. That evening, Judith and I went through my documentation. Emails, texts, voicemails, screenshots, receipts. She grinned as she scrolled. You're a dream client, she said. If he pushes for anything, we'll shut it down in a week. Let him, I said. She looked up, studying me. This isn't revenge for you, is it? No, I said. It's a reset. He thought I'd fund the story where he leaves as the victim. I'm rewriting it. Sunday morning, I went for a run, the first in months without glancing at my phone. The city smelled like rain and coffee, and the sidewalks felt new. When I got back, an email was waiting. From Judith Park. Subject: Notice of Representation, Mason Cross. Celine, attached is a letter from his attorney. Please read, breathe, then call me. The letter was exactly what I expected: claims of emotional distress, lost financial support, and damage to reputation. Judith's reply was even better. Your client voluntarily vacated the shared residence. Ms. Vale acted lawfully and reasonably. All accounts in question were supplementary or gifts contingent on cohabitation. She has offered supervised retrieval of personal items. The residence, purchased pre-relationship, remains her sole property. Ms. Vale will not be entertaining further communication outside counsel. I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I added a new note to my timeline. Day 26. Peace maintained. Entitlement escalated. Lawyer diffused. I made myself tea, sat by the window, and watched the sky shift from gray to blue. This was what consequences looked like. Not fire or spectacle, just truth settling where it belongs. There was still a part of me that ached, of course, for the version of him that once cooked breakfast, for the mornings that had felt steady. But that part was quieter now, like background noise fading as you drive away. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to gratitude, not for him, but for my own clarity. Because some people teach you love, others teach you boundaries. And some, if you're lucky, teach you both. It's strange, the way peace creeps back in. Not all at once, but like sunlight sneaking under a closed curtain. The house stayed still after they left. For days, I expected echoes. A slammed door, a familiar cough, his shoes in the hallway. Instead, there was nothing. Just the rhythm of my own footsteps, steady and unbothered. Judith's letter must have landed harder than expected because the silence stretched long enough for me to start trusting it. Then, one night near the end of the month, I got a text from Marilyn. It wasn't an apology. Of course not. You think you've won? Mason's struggling. He can't even make rent. I hope you're proud of yourself. I typed, then deleted several replies before settling on the truth. Mason made choices, I made boundaries. Then I blocked her. Judith called the next morning, chuckling. You must have rattled them. His lawyer just called to de-escalate. Translation, they realize he doesn't have a case. Meaning you owe him nothing. I thanked her and hung up. Simple as that. The next weeks were blissfully uneventful. I went to work, came home, cooked what I wanted. Sometimes I'd catch myself glancing at the second plate in the cupboard. Habit, nothing more. The spaces he used to fill didn't ache anymore. They just existed, neutral and harmless. Then, inevitably, the whispers began. A mutual acquaintance sent a screenshot of a post from Marilyn's Facebook, a vague image of a wine glass, captioned, "Some men can't handle being outshined, so they destroy the women who built them." There were sympathetic comments underneath, a few from people we both knew. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot, added it to my timeline, and kept scrolling. Because when someone tells lies long enough, they start believing them. That's punishment enough. 2 months after Mason left, my realtor called. "We have an offer on your house," she said, excitement bubbling through the phone. "Above asking." "Sell it," I said instantly. It wasn't spite, it was survival. Every wall still smelled faintly of him. Every quiet room hummed with the residue of arguments I hadn't realized I'd been losing. By the end of the week, the sale was set. I packed the essentials and donated the rest. The movers came early on a Saturday morning. By noon, the house was empty. When I turned off the lights one last time, I felt the strangest mix of grief and relief. Like closing a book that had been getting worse with every chapter, but that you'd kept reading anyway, just to see how it ended. Outside, the air was sharp with spring. I didn't look back. In the new apartment, things felt different. Smaller, simpler, better. My neighbors were quiet. My mornings had a rhythm that didn't depend on anyone else's moods. One evening, as I unpacked, my phone buzzed with a new message request. The profile photo was Veronica Hale. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "He told me everything," it began. "About how cold you were, about how you left him with nothing, about how you're telling everyone lies." I exhaled slowly and typed back just one sentence. "Check the date on your lease, Veronica." There was no reply. A week later, I got another message, this time from an unknown number. It was short. "You were right, she's done with me." No signature, but I didn't need one. I stared at the words for a long moment, then deleted them. Some people never apologize, some just run out of excuses. By summer, the stories had stopped. Mason had burned through every favor he had left. Friends who once sympathized started avoiding his calls. Even Marilyn, the ever-loyal sister, quieted down online. Through the grapevine, I heard he'd sold his car and moved into a shared apartment. He'd picked up a part-time job at a department store cosmetics counter. Ironic, given how much he once mocked ordinary work. Veronica, apparently, was long gone, a woman who loved ambition more than recovery. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't need to, because I had my own life again. In September, the divorce papers arrived. There wasn't much to divide. We'd never married, never shared accounts, and every asset was legally mine. Judith skimmed them, smiled, and said, "This is theater. Sign here, and it's over." I signed. That night, I sat by my window, a glass of wine in one hand, the city lights stretching endlessly below me. For the first time in months, my reflection in the glass looked like someone I recognized, not a version patched together to keep a man comfortable. It hit me then. Peace doesn't announce itself. It just replaces noise. 2 weeks later, I met Eli. He worked in architecture, quiet, thoughtful, allergic to chaos. We met at a coffee shop because we both reached for the same book someone left on the communal shelf. He laughed. "You like essays on modern minimalism?" "I live them," I said. We started seeing each other slowly, deliberately. He didn't ask about Mason, and I didn't offer. But one night, when we were walking home, he said something that stopped me cold. "You seem like someone who had to rebuild from ashes," he said. "But the thing about ashes is, they're proof of survival." I smiled. Maybe. Or maybe they're just what's left after you burn the wrong things. A month later, while scrolling idly online, I stumbled on a familiar photo. Mason and Veronica, arm in arm, champagne flutes raised. Caption, "New chapter, same dream." The timestamp was the night he left me. So that was the plan all along. The space. The rest of his things. The carefully rehearsed heartbreak. I didn't screenshot it, didn't send it to Judith or friends. I just closed the app and let it go. Some receipts don't need to be kept when the debt's already paid. It's been nearly a year now. The apartment still smells faintly of coffee and fresh paint. Eli and I take morning walks before work. I started a small side business consulting for creative freelancers, the kind of people Mason always claimed he wanted to be. I teach them contracts, boundaries, sustainability. Sometimes I tell them the truth, that independence without accountability is just entitlement in better clothes. When people ask if I regret how it ended, I say no, I regret how long I let it continue. Because closure isn't something they give you, it's something you take back. And in the end, the silence Mason left behind wasn't empty at all. It was room, finally, to breathe.